When he first told me that he wanted to meet with exes and apologize, I was like kind of sort of shocked in a way.
Robyn Brown is the most manipulative, badly motivated person I have ever seen on reality TV.
Sometimes I feel like if I weigh in too fast on some of his creative ideas, I can influence it in a negative way or a positive way.
I don't want to apologize for what I've been accused of. I want to apologize for what I know I've done.
So is there anything in you, like specifically you're sort of thinking about as far as things you want to mention?
One thing that I was very serious about when I said it, but then I felt really like it was really crappy to say a year or two later, was that I never loved him.
You need to sit down for this one, because what I'm about to reveal is going to fundamentally change how you see the entire Brown family implosion. Robyn Brown just had a moment on camera that she absolutely did not intend to happen, and honestly, it's the smoking gun we've been waiting for. For years, fans have suspected Robyn's role in destroying Kody's relationships with Meri, Janelle, and Christine. But we've never had concrete proof, until now. In the latest Sister Wives episode, Robyn thought she was playing the compassionate, empathetic wife. She thought she was positioning herself as the voice of reason and morality in the family. Instead, what she actually did was accidentally confess to being the architect of one of the most devastating family breakdowns in reality television history. And the wildest part? She has absolutely no idea she just exposed herself. I'm talking about the conversation between Kody and Robyn that aired during season 20, where Kody casually mentions he's considering apologizing to his ex-wives for claiming he never loved them. On the surface, this seems like a potentially redemptive moment. A narcissistic man finally recognizing his cruelty and attempting to make amends. But then Robyn opens her mouth and everything changes. What happens next is so calculated, so manipulative, and yet so accidentally revealing that I had to watch it 3 times to catch every single layer of deception happening in real time. Robyn starts crying about abandoned wives and plural marriages. She talks about women who shared everything only to be left with nothing. She positions herself as someone who's horrified by the mistreatment of women in polygamous relationships. And if you don't know the actual facts of this family's financial and emotional dynamics, you might even feel sorry for her. But here's what makes this moment absolutely explosive. Every single thing Robyn is crying about, every pattern of abandonment and neglect she's condemning, is exactly what happened to Meri, Janelle, and Christine under her watch. And not just under her watch, with her active participation, with her encouragement, with her manipulation of Kody to ensure she remained the priority while the other wives were systematically discarded. Robyn thought she was condemning other men's behavior. What she actually did was hold up a mirror to her own family and accidentally confess to orchestrating the exact same dynamic she claims to find morally reprehensible. This wasn't just a hypocritical moment. This was a full-scale, unintentional admission of guilt, and we need to break down exactly how this happened and what it reveals about Robyn's true role in this family's destruction. Let me set the scene for you, because the context matters. Kody approaches Robyn with what he calls an idea, but it's clearly more than that. He's been thinking about it seriously. He wants to apologize to Meri, Janelle, and Christine. Specifically, he wants to take back one of the cruelest things he's ever said on camera, that he never loved them. Now remember when Kody made that statement? It wasn't a heated argument. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a calculated, deliberate declaration designed to rewrite history and position Robyn as his one true love. It was meant to retroactively justify his abandonment of 3 women who had given him decades of their lives, multiple children, and unwavering loyalty despite his consistent failures as a husband and father. That statement devastated Meri, Janelle, and Christine. But more importantly, it devastated their children. Imagine being one of Kody's kids from these marriages and hearing your father publicly declare he never loved your mother. That's not just insulting to the ex-wives. That's telling their children that their entire childhood, their family structure, their parents' relationship was a lie. That level of cruelty is almost impossible to comprehend. So when Kody tells Robyn he's considering apologizing for that statement, this should be a straightforward moment of growth and accountability. A man recognizing he caused devastating harm and wanting to make amends. But watch what Robyn does with this information. because her response reveals everything about who she really is and what she's really been doing this entire time. Kody says very clearly, "I don't want to apologize for what I've been accused of. I want to apologize for what I know I've done." That's actually a remarkably self-aware statement for Kody. He's acknowledging specific harm he caused through his own actions and words. He's taking ownership, at least in this moment, of a devastating statement that he knows was wrong. Then Robyn asks, "Is there anything specifically you're thinking about as far as things you want to mention?" She's probing. She's trying to figure out exactly what Kody is planning to say and how it might affect her position in the family hierarchy. Because make no mistake, every apology Kody makes to his ex-wives is a potential threat to the narrative Robyn has carefully constructed about being his soulmate and one true love. Kody responds by explaining that when he said he never loved them, he was serious at the time. But a year or two later, he realized it was really crappy to say. He's admitting it was cruel. He's admitting it was false. And most importantly, he's admitting that it caused harm he now wants to address. This is where things get absolutely fascinating, because instead of supporting this moment of accountability, instead of encouraging Kody to do the right thing and take back a statement that wounded 3 women and their children, Robyn immediately pivots. She starts crying. And she starts talking about something that seems completely unrelated on the surface but is actually deeply calculated. Robyn talks about growing up and seeing women in plural marriages who were forgotten, wives who shared everything only to be abandoned and left with nothing. She calls it wrong. Her voice shakes with emotion. She talks about how Kody's claim of never loving the others shook her to her core and made her question the man she married. Now, if you're watching this scene without context, it looks like Robyn is expressing empathy for abandoned wives. It looks like she's horrified by the mistreatment of women in polygamous relationships. It looks like she's validating how wrong Kody's statement was. But when you understand the actual dynamics of this family, when you know the financial records, when you've watched how resources and attention have been distributed over the past decade, this scene transforms into something completely different. What Robyn is actually doing here is masterfully manipulative. She's redirecting the conversation away from Kody's accountability and toward her own feelings. She's making this moment about her pain at hearing Kody's cruel statement, rather than about the pain experienced by the actual victims of that statement. She's positioning herself as someone who cares deeply about the mistreatment of wives, while simultaneously being the primary beneficiary of that exact mistreatment in her own family. In her confessional, Robyn expresses massive relief that Kody is considering walking back his statement. She literally says, "Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus." But notice why she's relieved. She doesn't say she's relieved for Meri, Janelle, and Christine. She says she's relieved because of the pain it caused the kids. She's still centering the narrative around everyone except the actual women who were harmed by Kody's cruelty. And then she says something absolutely revealing. She says it wasn't the truth that she knew. It wasn't the truth that they knew. What Robyn is doing here is subtly maintaining her position as someone who knows Kody better than his ex-wives do. Even while expressing relief that he's apologizing, she's still positioning herself as the authority on Kody's true feelings and motivations. But here's where the entire facade crumbles. Because every single thing Robyn is crying about in this scene, every pattern of abandonment and neglect she's condemning, is exactly what happened to Meri, Janelle, and Christine. And the evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Let's start with the finances, because this is where Robyn's hypocrisy becomes absolutely glaring. She cries for women who had to share their resources and were left with nothing. She positions this as a moral outrage.
It shook me hard.
Did you feel betrayed by it or something?
It took me a minute. I was like, do I not know who he is? Was I deceived? It was a really big deal to me when I was growing up. You'd see it all the time in our church, where there would be a man with multiple wives, and there would be this, like, a wife that was just absolutely unloved, like, just the devastation of a woman trying to sit there and, like, be in a marriage where not only is she sharing her husband and going through that whole process of sharing all the resources and sharing his love and time and attention, but also just completely not being considered and not loved and not taken care of. And that's wrong. So when you said, "I never loved them,"
That wasn't, in fact, it makes me sad to think that I said it.
it was one of the things that made me fall in love with you.
But Robyn was the primary beneficiary of a system where money was systematically funneled toward her household, while other wives were left scrambling to meet basic needs. Do we need to talk about Janelle? A woman who financially supported this family for literally decades? A woman who worked full-time jobs while Kody was off playing husband with other wives? Janelle ended up living in a recreational vehicle on a patch of dirt on Coyote Pass. Not because she didn't contribute financially, not because she didn't sacrifice for this family, but because the resources she helped generate were redirected toward Robyn's household and Robyn's priorities. And remember how it was even an ordeal to determine where Janelle could park her RV? Because certain areas of Coyote Pass belonged to other wives. Janelle, who had invested her own money into purchasing that property, was being told where she could and couldn't exist on land she helped pay for. Meanwhile, Robyn lived in a massive, comfortable rental home that became Kody's one and only base of operations. Then there's Christine. Christine had to actively fundraise and hustle to cover the cost of her daughter, Isabel's life-altering back surgery. Isabel needed major spinal surgery to correct severe scoliosis. This wasn't cosmetic. This was a medical necessity to prevent permanent damage and chronic pain. But Kody was wishy-washy about the procedure. He questioned whether it was really necessary. And when Christine and Isabel finally went ahead with the surgery, Kody refused to travel with them to support his daughter through a traumatic medical procedure. All of this was happening while Robyn and Kody lived in a massive, comfortable home, while Robyn's children had consistent access to their father, while Robyn's household received the bulk of Kody's time, attention, and financial resources. So when Robyn cries about women in plural marriages who aren't taken care of, who are left to fend for themselves while their husband prioritizes one wife, she's describing exactly what she helped create in her own family. The controversial move to Flagstaff is another perfect example. This move, which just happened to line up perfectly with Dayton's college plans, stretched the family's finances to the absolute breaking point. The timing wasn't coincidental. Robyn wanted to be near Dayton while he attended college, and Kody made it happen regardless of the financial devastation it would cause for everyone else. Christine didn't want to move to Flagstaff. She had built a life in Las Vegas. Her kids were settled. She had established community connections. But the move happened anyway because Robyn wanted it, and Kody prioritized Robyn's preferences over everyone else's stability and well-being. The move primarily benefited Robyn's branch of the family while forcing everyone else to uproot their lives and absorb significant financial costs. For Robyn to then cry about the injustice of unequal resources, about wives being left with nothing while one wife gets everything, represents a level of cognitive dissonance that is absolutely staggering. She's literally describing the system she helped create and maintain. She's condemning behavior she actively participated in. She's positioning herself as morally superior while being the primary architect of the exact dynamic she claims to find reprehensible. But the financial abandonment is only part of the story. The emotional abandonment Robyn helped facilitate is even more damning. The very thing she's weeping over in this conversation with Kody, a wife being left unloved and neglected, is the exact story she expected Meri, Janelle, and Christine to live for years while she enjoyed Kody's consistent presence and affection. All three ex-wives have talked extensively about Kody's absence, his coldness, and his emotional withdrawal. Meri described feeling completely rejected and abandoned. Janelle talked about Kody becoming distant and uninterested in maintaining their relationship. Christine detailed years of feeling unloved and unvalued. And where was Kody during all of this emotional neglect? He was with Robyn. During the pandemic, this dynamic became impossible to ignore or deny. Kody used his ridiculously strict COVID rules as justification to almost exclusively live at Robyn's house. He created a monogamous marriage by default, while his other wives were left completely isolated. Janelle and Christine were expected to follow impossible protocols that essentially prevented Kody from visiting them, while he maintained unrestricted access to Robyn's household. Robyn will claim she was just following Kody's rules. She'll say she didn't make the decisions about where Kody spent his time. But by enforcing those rules, by not challenging Kody's obvious favoritism, by not advocating for her sister wives to receive equal access to their shared husband, Robyn's home, became the one and only place the husband and father was always present. This directly contradicts the empathy she claims to feel for abandoned wives in this scene with Kody. The most glaring example of Robyn's complicity remains Isabel's surgery. While Christine and Isabel traveled out of state for a major, painful operation that required months of recovery, Kody stayed behind. He cited his COVID protocols as the reason he couldn't support his daughter through a traumatic medical procedure. But somehow, those same COVID protocols didn't prevent him from staying comfortably at Robyn's house. Robyn cried in this scene about abandoned wives. But where were her tears for a child facing major surgery without her father's support? Where was her advocacy for Isabel? Where was her pressure on Kody to be present for his daughter during a medical crisis? The silence was deafening. Robyn's priorities were clear. Maintaining Kody's presence in her own household mattered more than ensuring his presence for a daughter undergoing spinal surgery. So when you watch Robyn cry about forgotten wives, about women left with nothing while their husband prioritizes one relationship, you have to ask yourself what those tears really represent. Because all the evidence suggests the pattern of abandonment she's crying about is a dynamic she helped normalize and actively benefited from. Robyn's role in this family went far beyond being just the favorite wife. She frequently acted as Kody's official translator and public relations person. She constantly softened his cruel words. She explained his intentions to everyone else. She positioned herself as the bridge between Kody and his other relationships, while simultaneously ensuring those relationships deteriorated beyond repair. You can see this dynamic playing out in the apology scene itself. When Kody first says he wants to apologize, Robyn's immediate reaction isn't to hold him accountable for the harm he caused. Her first instinct is to defend him. She says, "I don't think you should be so hard on yourself about being hurt." Think about that response. Kody is acknowledging he said something cruel and wants to apologize. The appropriate response would be to validate that decision and encourage him to follow through. But Robyn immediately redirects toward Kody's feelings. She's more concerned with protecting Kody from feeling bad about his behavior than she is with justice for the women he harmed. While Robyn eventually gets on board with the apology, her first instinct reveals where her true loyalties lie. She exists to validate Kody's perspective and protect his emotional comfort, even when he's acknowledging his own cruelty. This isn't the behavior of someone who genuinely cares about abandoned wives. This is the behavior of someone protecting her position in a hierarchy she helped create. In her confessional, Robyn admits her surprise at Kody's suggested apology tour, but then she says something absolutely revealing. She says Kody says a lot of things that may not even happen. That one comment exposes everything. Robyn is fully aware of Kody's tendency for grand, empty gestures. She knows he makes promises he doesn't keep. She knows he performs remorse without following through with actual change or accountability. And yet, despite knowing this about Kody, despite recognizing his pattern of manipulation and empty promises, Robyn has consistently supported his narrative. She's validated his victim mentality. She's reinforced his perspective that the other wives were the problem. She's helped him justify his abandonment by positioning herself as the only wife who truly understood and supported him. The ultimate irony here is absolutely breathtaking. Robyn left a difficult first marriage to become the central figure in a system that caused 3 other women to leave theirs. She condemned the abandonment she saw growing up in polygamous communities, yet she refuses to admit she was the main beneficiary of that exact same dynamic in this family. She wasn't just another sister wife trying to navigate a complex family structure. She was the wife who got the full-time husband. She was the wife whose needs always came first. She was the wife whose household received priority for resources, time, and emotional investment. Meanwhile, Meri, Janelle, and Christine were left fighting for scraps of attention and affection from a man who had clearly checked out of their relationships. So what were Robyn's tears really about? Were they about the forgotten wives from her past that she claims to remember? Were they for Meri, Janelle, and Christine, who experienced exactly what she's crying about? Or were they actually for herself? When you examine her actions over the past decade, when you track how she's positioned herself and protected her status in the family, it becomes hard not to wonder if those tears were less about empathy and more about self-preservation. Because Kody's cruel claims of never loving his other wives served a very specific purpose in Robyn's narrative. It legitimized her position as his one true soulmate. It explained and justified why he abandoned 3 other women. It made Robyn's monopoly on Kody's time and affection seem romantic rather than cruel. The second Kody considered retracting that statement, the entire foundation of Robyn's narrative was threatened. If Kody admits he did love Meri, Janelle, and Christine, then his current devotion to Robyn stops being a destined love story and starts looking like what it actually is: a choice to abandon 3 marriages in favor of prioritizing one wife while maintaining the legal and social benefits of claiming to practice plural marriage. From that perspective, Robyn's tears weren't for abandoned wives. They were the panicked reaction of someone realizing the story she's been telling herself and everyone else is about to fall apart. She's been positioning herself as Kody's true love, the relationship that was always meant to be, the wife who finally gave him what his other marriages couldn't provide. But if Kody admits those other marriages were real and his feelings were genuine, then Robyn's special status evaporates. This feels a lot like crying about a flood from the comfort of the only ark that was ever built. Robyn is weeping about abandoned wives while actively occupying the one secure position in a system designed to create abandonment. She's mourning a dynamic she helped orchestrate. She's condemning behavior she facilitated. And she's positioning herself as morally superior while being the primary architect of the very abandonment she claims to find so devastating. Robyn's tears in this scene didn't expose the cruelty of other men in polygamous relationships. Her tears exposed her own cruelty. They exposed her complicity. They exposed her manipulation. And most importantly, they exposed the fundamental hypocrisy at the center of her entire victim narrative. For years, Robyn has positioned herself as someone who was just trying to fit into an existing family. She's claimed she never wanted to cause problems. She's insisted she always supported Kody's other marriages and wanted the family to work. But this scene reveals the truth. Robyn has always known exactly what happens when one wife is prioritized at the expense of others. She's always understood the devastation caused by unequal distribution of resources and affection. She's always been aware that this system creates winners and losers. And despite knowing all of that, despite claiming to find it morally reprehensible, despite crying about the injustice of abandoned wives, Robyn made damn sure she was the winner. She made sure her household got the resources. She made sure her children had consistent access to their father. She made sure Kody's time and attention flowed primarily toward her. And when the other wives finally had enough and left, Robyn positioned herself as the loyal wife who stayed, rather than acknowledging she was the reason they had to leave to preserve their own sanity and self-worth. The question now is whether Robyn will ever recognize her own role in this family's destruction. Will she ever acknowledge that she wasn't just a passive participant in a system that failed, that she actively shaped that system to benefit herself at the expense of 3 other women and their children? Based on this scene, where she condemns behavior she participated in without any apparent self-awareness, the answer seems to be no. Robyn has constructed a narrative where she is always the victim or the hero, never the villain. She's the devoted wife who stood by Kody when others abandoned him. She's the compassionate sister wife who mourns the mistreatment of women in plural marriage. She's the emotional support who helps Kody process his feelings and find his way toward growth and accountability. But the evidence tells a completely different story. The evidence shows a woman who came into an existing family and systematically positioned herself as the priority. A woman who benefited enormously from financial and emotional abandonment while expressing horror at that very dynamic. A woman who helped facilitate the destruction of 3 marriages while claiming to value and support those relationships. A woman who cries about abandoned wives while being the reason those wives were abandoned. This scene where Robyn weeps about forgotten women in plural marriages will go down as one of the most accidentally revealing moments in Sister Wives history. Not because it showed us something new about Robyn's character, but because it confirmed what viewers have suspected for years. Robyn is not the victim of this family's collapse. She is the architect. And her tears are not for the women who suffered. They're for herself, desperately trying to maintain a narrative that is crumbling under the weight of obvious, undeniable truth. So I want to know what you think. After watching this scene and understanding the full context of this family's financial and emotional dynamics, do you see Robyn as a master manipulator who co-authored this family's downfall? Or do you think she's just another victim of Kody's choices, trapped in a system she didn't create? Is there any way to interpret her tears as genuine empathy for abandoned wives when she was the primary beneficiary of that abandonment in her own family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective on Robyn's role in this family's destruction and whether you think she has any awareness of her own complicity. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel for more Sister Wives deep dives, and I'll catch you guys in the next video where we're breaking down even more shocking revelations from this season. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.